So Nvidia has come out and given some warnings about its Q2 numbers, talking about revenue being significantly lower, and this kind of shocked the stock today. Now, Nvidia is a semiconductor producer, and there are lots of other companies that make semiconductors as well. So what I wanted to do is take a look at not only the chart of Nvidia, but also some of its brothers and sisters in semiconductor land, specifically components of the XSD ETF. Now, before we look at the charts, an important reminder that trading and investing can be extremely risky business. Therefore, it's your responsibility to evaluate any information, opinion, advice, or other content contained in this video. All right, so here I have the monthly chart of Nvidia to start us off. And you might be wondering, why bother looking at a monthly price chart, right? Well, guys, especially during volatile times like this gives you a good solid ground of where this stock has been and where it might be going, and then you can break down to the lower time frames. So I have my RSI Power Zones down below, my favorite momentum indicator, and I'm plotting Japanese candlesticks as I often do. So you can see that with this monthly chart, every price bar is 1 month of price action, and after a very strong July compared to recent months, Nvidia's kind of hanging out so far in August. And today's news has pushed it a little bit lower, which we'll see on the shorter time frame charts. But in the big picture, it's attempting to hold and turn with the RSI in the bull support power zone. And so the last time we saw that was back here in 2019. So you can see that that's kind of setting up a good situation in the long term, but there might be a bit of weakness short term before we see a bigger picture rise. So to get to the next time frame, I'm going to go over to a weekly chart. I'm going to apply the same type of analysis. Now, this is just me talking through the chart very broadly, but with my students in our monthly group coaching live, I also have an advanced monthly group coaching live. We go really deep on the charts because I know the students in there have access to my various education on price action, momentum, forecasting, GAN, and more. All right. So here, let's take a look at the weekly chart. Now you can see I still have the same RSI power zones. I don't need to change the settings, and still candlesticks, now each one representing 1 week of price action. So again, you can see the representation of that July strength here with this run up. In the big picture though, it still remains weak off of the November 2021 high, and specifically off of the April high. One important level that we're getting close to is this high from a couple months back. So I'm just going to anchor a line right to it, and that's from the week ending June 3rd, 2022. So that $196 area is very important resistance for Nvidia. If it comes up and hits it and doesn't keep going, might want to watch out for it to fall further, but if it can clear it, that would be great. But again, we're talking about what news came out that's supposedly bad, so there may be a little bit more weakness ahead before the stock attempts to resume. So now let's look at the daily time frame. So again, keeping all else the same except changing the amount of data showing on the chart. So now we're seeing less data in terms of each individual piece, right? Each of these candles is just 1 day of price action. Today's bar, because I'm recording this midday, isn't even completed yet, but you can see there was a gap from last Friday's range, and the stock doesn't look very happy at the moment, having plunged lower. Now, there are support levels nearby, and support is where there's price floors in a market, so potential areas where buyers live, if you will, and that they might come knocking and support the stock, right? That's why it's called support. And one of the most important ones here is 164.78, so round to 165. So you can see there's this 165 to 195 sort of place for Nvidia that it's living in right now, but if it kind of takes action in either direction, that would be more telling about where it might go in the long run. Also, I want to look at some of the other levels that it could take action on beyond these 1 or 2. So again, using my most favorite type of way of deducing price-based resistance and support, and I get into this method in the 4 zones RSI system, here are some of the other levels I'd watch out for to the upside. And let's apply that same concept here on the downside, and you can see some of the levels I'm choosing, and again, why I'm selecting them is in my full teachings. So this gives me a roadmap, right? If Nvidia continues and turns this way or that way, we can see now where it has to make progress in order to advance, or where it has to really kind of give out the floor in order to fall. Okay, now there's all these components here, and there's lots of them that you may or may not trade. But something I want to show you is I'm actually going to rank them in a way that I don't think I've ever shared before. And we're going to analyze them in that method really quick. So the ticker symbols here are loaded up based on the way that I downloaded them after studying and finding online the XSD stock components, okay? They're not alphabetical. They're not based on individual technical data. It is the weighting in the ETF. So when I talk about the weighting in the ETF, I'm talking about each of these stocks and how they are considered for the overall price of the ETF. So you can see that there's individual weights, and that's how the ranking list comes out when you download them, okay? Biggest weight to lowest weight. But I would like to apply my analysis techniques. So I'm going to do something here. You'll see in a second. And notice it changed. I decided to rank by one of my factors. And I'm going to get more into what factor I chose, again, in my coaching sessions where I can go a little bit deeper on this. But now let's take a little quick tour. Right? I'm going to click through charts very quickly. And I want you to start to see how I've now ranked the charts from a little bit weaker to a little bit stronger, from those that are a little bit earlier perhaps in their latest recovery to those that are a little bit more mature, all right? So let's just start with this window here. We've got Intel, and to make it easier to see the company name, I'm just gonna add that to the window here. All right, so I went ahead and made an adjustment on my screen so you can see the company name as I move through. So Micron is one that I've paid attention to more than a couple times. And you can see that actually off of a really excellent momentum signal that it provided a few months ago and that I called out to those who get my stock picks, it has been nice and steadily higher and still has room to go potentially into the $75 area. We already looked at Nvidia, so we won't spend any more time there. Now, it may look like I'm just flashing through on the screen, but I am taking in the data. And what I want to do is only highlight things that I think are very actionable or in stocks that I suspect you guys might trade. Okay, so Qualcomm is interesting. And again, I would do a full multi-time frame analysis first, but to just give you an idea here, this is also in a continued sort of upside potential mode. And I think this actually has room to get up to the 175 to 180 area in time, okay, in the next few months, not like overnight. AVGO, this is Broadcom, so this is another company that lots of my traders trade. And here what I see is that it's at a very interesting juncture. This support from August 2nd is quite important. So if it gets below this August 2nd low, I'd be a little bit concerned about it making a journey back to that 480 area. But while it's above that level, we could see it getting more towards this 568, 570 area, okay? All right, AMD is another popular one. So AMD has actually come into a very important zone of potential resistance. And I say potential, guys, because just because there's potential resistance here at 109.50, it doesn't mean that the stock is just gonna like go and touch that level and roll over. That's not how support and resistance work, okay? They are collections of areas of energy, essentially, buying or selling energy, and sometimes they pause price action and sometimes they don't. And that's where layering in the other tools I teach helps you to know which support and which resistance are likely to hold and, you know, be firm or be violated. So right now, AMD staying above 93.62 would put it on track to head up towards that 190.50, or I should say 109.50. Okay. I love this one, LSCC. I don't know this stock too well, but I love how it's got this sideways range action. See, it creates a perfect little boundary, like a little scrunchie, I often say, so that you can be prepared and potentially take action and make a trade, whether it goes up or down. You don't have to be worried about which one it is. You can just set up your orders accordingly. SPWR is at a very interesting position, having approached this resistance level from back in April and then showing a red candle so far. Okay? I'm capturing this midday, so we may be running out of steam there. Notice that PI has already come up into the bull resistance power zone, and last time it did that, it went higher for just a few days and then briefly corrected. So we might see something similar here. And last but not least is FSLR, right? that's already shown that it's pushed up into the low resistance power zone. So I hope this has given you an insight into how the semiconductor stock arena is doing overall. Again, we can come back to that Nvidia chart where they had news that kind of concerned folks, but remember that sometimes bad news, okay, the negative impact of that news comes and goes quickly, and you should be paying attention to the overall trend. So the most important support here, 164.78, has not been violated yet. I'm not saying you should just buy blindly. You should make sure you're using the data that works for you to support a decision to go long. But what I'm saying is that just because that news came out doesn't mean that, the stock is doomed, okay? You got to watch how things unfold because, guys, it's not just about bad or good news anymore. It's the market participants' reaction to the news that moves the stock, right? Not the news itself. It's the people who trade it and how they behave. That's what actually makes moves in the market. And that's what we study here with price, time, momentum, and more. All right. Hope this was helpful to you. If you're here for the first time, please be sure to join my tribe where you'll get notification about these updates as soon as I have them ready and more. And I'll catch you guys on the inside. You can sign up at the link to join my tribe and get my hot, timely, actionable updates as soon as I publish right to your inbox.